Hi, everybody. Welcome to the brand new 2024 edition of the MakeCode Arcade Advanced stream. I'm Richard. Richard on the MakeCode forum.
I'm Thomas at Sparks on MakeCode forum.
And today we are going to be doing something. I had a plan for today, but it required Joey to be here. And Joey has abandoned us. So I don't know what we're going to be doing today, but I guess to start off, though, I'm going to demo something that Joey and I did. But first, how was your holidays, Thomas? Was good? Have good holidays?
They were great. I tried snowboarding for the first time, and it was interesting.
You didn't break both your legs?
No, but it was close,
Okay, that's the typical experience I hear from people who tell me they go snowboarding.
Yeah. Definitely a close call on my wrist a couple of times, but so far so good. How was your holiday?
Oh, it was good. I didn't do much. I hung out with friends, did some virtual stuff with my family because they're on the East Coast. And I watched a lot of Alfred Hitchcock movies. Oh, and I made this thing. Ta-da! I actually made two of these. All right. So, what am I doing? What do I have up here? Well, before we went away on our break, the MakeCode team actually had a hackathon. And Joey and I worked together on our hackathon project. And he's not here, but I'm going to demo it anyway because it's cool. We made an extension, which you can try now, but I'm going to give you some warnings at the end of this. But it still works pretty well, but there's some caveats, which replaces the physics engine in Arcade with one that supports moving platforms. So this is something that we've never really been able to do in Arcade, of having things kind of push you around, because it's trickier than it sounds to do that and also just have a general purpose physics engine. Moving platforms is a lot easier to do when you're doing something like a platformer, and all it's doing is a platformer, But if we have to support platformer and top-down stuff and all sorts of other games, it gets a lot more complicated. So anyway, let's take a look. So what do I mean by moving platforms? Well, here I have made a little platformer to demo with. And I'm going to walk over on this guy. And woo, it's an elevator. Ignore the red. That was for testing purposes. But yeah, so there you go. We have a platform moving. It has collision. I can't go into it. And I can control it like normal sprite. Now we can also have platforms that just kind of move around, like this, just like you would have any other sprite move. So this is just using the sprite move block. And you might, as we're going, notice a little bit of jittering when the tile map goes sideways, when the moving platforms are moving in the X direction. So if you look really carefully, you can see it. But it's kind of tough. Here, it might be easier if I do it on this one. Okay, so you see some jittering. You might be like, oh no, jittering, that's terrible. Well, it's actually just a drawing bug. Everything is working properly. It's not actually moving when that happens. It's a bug with how we draw our sprites to the screen and converting floating point numbers into pixel values. So sorry, I'm going to try and figure out a way to fix it, but it's really tough. I've been working on it. So yeah, so in addition to riding them, you can also be pushed by them. So you can see this guy pushing me. And you might wonder what happens when you get squished. Well, boop, you start clipping. So if you get squished, you start clipping, but we also have a block that lets you handle that behavior. So if you want to make it so the player dies or whatever, but you kind of have to do something when you get squished because it's like breaking the invariant basically of the extension. So one other some of those caveats I was talking about. Let's go look at the code. Okay. So inside the moving platforms extension, we create a platform, and this returns a sprite. Now, we made this a sprite so that you could use all the other sprite blocks with it. But it should be noted that a lot of sprite stuff do not work with these. For example, scaling will just do nothing. Similarly, a lot of the other sprite flags probably won't work either. Sprite overlap events will not work. Same thing with like on-hit tile and stuff like that. Now, on-hit tile won't work for the platform itself, but it will work for like if another sprite hits it. It just won't fire on the actual platform itself. So they are sprites. You can use any block that you can use with sprite with this, but just be aware that it might not work as expected with some sprite features. Now, caveat number 2, platforms cannot hit each other. So while sprites cannot go into platforms, platforms will just go right through each other. And that includes platforms with tile maps too. So yeah, just also be aware of that. It's a lot more complicated to make it so that two platforms that bump into things also bump into each other. So we didn't do that. And also, it's kind of a limited scenario. So yeah. Thirdly, what was my third one? I know I had it. Yeah, I don't know. Well, anyway, so when you're creating a platform, instead of using an image, you just go ahead and create it using a tile map. And these can be very small tile maps. So like here's that elevator, right? It's just 3 tiles across and set wall on it. You can also make non-wall tiles as part of your platform and they won't have collision. So if you want to put like, you know, some grass on top of the platform or something like that, you can totally do that. Just works as you'd expect. And yeah, so that's it. It works pretty well, but there are some bugs. It's an entire replacement of the physics engine. So if you're going to use it, just expect that you will hit some bugs. And if you do hit some bugs, please let us know. And if you want to try it out, I'm going to post about it on the forum later. But you can go to github.com/ricknoll/arcade. Oh shoot, what do I call this? Moving platforms. There you go. You can go ahead and add that ricknoll/arcade moving platforms to your project and use it there. And once this gets to a sufficiently like you know, mature point, I will probably move it into a Microsoft repo and make it an official extension. Now, one other, I remember what the other caveat was. This replaces the physics engine. So if there is any other extension that replaces the physics, replaces the physics engine. So if there's any other extension that replaces the physics engine, they won't work together, obviously. So I don't actually know of any off the top of my head. I don't actually know if the raycasting one does or not. The raycasting one might. I'm not sure. I haven't tried it. But yeah, in the future, I know there's some people on the MakeCode team who are working on things that replace the physics engine, and just be aware that these things cannot work together. They're all, you know, you can only have one of them. And yeah, cool. All right. So with that out of the way, one other thing I'm going to mention before we get started with whatever we're going to do today. Oh, actually, let me go through the blocks first while we're still talking about moving platforms. So we have some events here. We have on sprite of kind player, and then we have collides with, is pushed by, is squished by, and rides. So the difference between is pushed by and rides is that is pushed by happens when a platform forces a sprite to move by bumping into it. And riding happens when the sprite is already hitting the platform and is then moved by it. And in most cases, you don't want to use rides, but I added it anyway. You generally want to use collides with. And then squished by is what it sounds like. Squishing happens when a tile map, an obstacle pushes you into another obstacle, whether it be another platform or a tile map. So if that happens, you're squished, and you know by default you just start clipping and you fall through the world. But you can also add something to handle it, like to kill the player or whatever, classic Mario style. We also just have a general squished thing. So platforms have kinds just like sprites. So this one is you can specify the kind. This one you can just do a general all-up squishing because you know it's more likely that you want to handle any kind of platform squishing you and not every kind squishing you different. And then we have some is hitting things. Wait, what is platform? My sprite is hitting left. Oh, this will return the platform. I get it. And then the platform kind. And I'm actually adding one more block to this, which I just pushed, but is not in the version that I have in this project, which is a thing that lets a platform ignore sprites. So you can basically add sprites to a list of ignored sprites for that platform. And this is possibly not going to make it into the final version of the extension. But I was trying to think of how would we use this to make pushable blocks. So I want to make blocks that you could push around. All right. And they should be able to bump into the other pushable blocks. Right. And the way I thought of doing this is you make a sprite that is the real block, and you put a block on top of it. And when they collide with the block, you set the velocity on the sprite, and that way that sprite will be blocked by the other blocks, but you basically attach it to the main block. This is all very confusing. It'll make more sense when I have some sample code. But basically what I'm saying is there's going to be a sprite and a platform. The sprite is what's going to actually do the moving, and you're just inside of an on-game update going to be updating the platform at the sprite's location so that it's attached, basically. And to make that happen, you have to have it so that it can ignore this one sprite. So yeah, I don't know. I'm going to try it out and see how it works, but it might not make it into the final version, so be careful. Yeah, all right. So like I said, I'll post about this more on the forum later. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to mention, we had a mini game jam going on during December, and we're going to be playing those games at the end of the week. And we are also going to be playing the games from the superhero game jam that Kiki from the forum put on. So we're going to be playing through all of those on Friday. So tune in. It'll be fun. We always love playing your games. So we'll try that out. All right, cool. All right, so we had a request from Soren Lawrenson. Can we do an extension today? So sure, we could do an extension. Do you have an idea for one, Thomas? What's a really simple extension we could do? Like maybe one that has like one interesting block.
Look at your extension
bounty list.
Bounty list, yeah.
Well, you made games in arcade. Is there anything that that was missing that you really wanted?
Nothing that's like super like a simple extension that I can think of.
Well, give me some non-simple ones too.
Well, we have some rotation stuff inside the PXD scaling extension. That could be its own extension. But I think that implementation is pretty complete. I don't think it's missing much.
Yeah, the main problem with it is memory.
Yeah. What was it? It was something to do with displaying text that I was really wanting.
I have. Let me see if I can find this demo I had a long time. Oh yeah, here we go. So I was working on a memory efficient rotation. Which you can see right here. It definitely does not look as good as Joey's, but it is extremely memory efficient. It doesn't require any memory, basically. And the way this works is by doing 3 shears, basically. So what's interesting about this is if you watch, there are no pixels being created or destroyed as part of this. All pixels are just moving. So that's kind of interesting. So you can actually watch all of the pixels move around, and none of them actually ever blink out of existence. And yeah, so that's something. The thing that I got.
Sorry, I was going to say padding numbers is also a useful extension.
Oh, true. We could do that one. The thing that I always get stuck on is scaling, making this work with scaling. And I started implementing it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this scaling stuff is so complicated. And putting the rotation on top of it, it required a lot of like, high AutoZone. it required a lot of like transformations that I did not feel equipped to do at the moment. This is my cat Otto, by the way, who is moved in front of the camera. Otto. All right.
Also, adding text alignment in the fancy text extension, that was something that occurred to me. So you can center align and right align text. That might be kind of tricky, but that's a thing that.
That's not that. That's not.
Richard? Oh, if I'm frozen or if Richard is frozen. I'm checking the stream now. Oh no, it's Richard. Well, hello. I own the live stream now. I don't know what Richard was about to say with regard to how we can. Oh, okay. Richard is telling me that he is still here, but Otto shut down his computer. So, yeah, you can't hear you, Richard. I guess I don't know if you can turn on your mic in the other machine that is actually streaming GitHub or streaming MakeCode, but okay, Richard. Hang on, let me see if he can. I'm just turning up the volume on my stream to see if Richard's voice is coming through on the stream. It's not coming through on the Teams call, but it doesn't seem like it is. So we'll just get to watch Richard code while his computer is rebooting, which is fun. You know, that's great. Looks like we're going with making a padding the numbers extension. Gosh, I'm so lost without Richard. I'll take a look at your quiz extension, Soren. I was looking at it just a minute ago before everything went into chaos. And for some reason, there it is. Okay. So if you want to give a little bit of context on the extension in the chat, that would be helpful. I'm just looking at like the code you wrote and trying to see if I'm understanding it too.
Hi, I'm back.
Hey.
Yeah, so Thomas, I could not hear anything you were saying, by the way, since as soon as I disappeared.
Fine. It was, you didn't miss much.
Okay. But what happened there was Otto, my cat, managed to step on the power button of my laptop until it forced shut down. So
nice.
Thank you, Otto.
Yeah. Padding numbers means, so if you have like the number 5, but you want it to take up 3 digits worth of space, you pad it with zeros. So it'd be 0, 0, 5. Or like 0, 1, 2 for 12.
So a bit of background on this. I've had a like kind of like a bounty program that no one has taken me up on extensions. And one of them is just a general purpose number formatting extension. And so, you know what, we might actually, let's just do a general purpose format number function first, and then we'll also do padding as well. So what do I mean by the number formatting and stuff? A lot of times we have to do, like, the main thing that always gets me is a lot of times we have like a number in milliseconds, and we want to display it as time. And that's annoying code to write. It's not complicated, but it's tedious because the ancients, in all of their wisdom, decided that we were going to have minutes and seconds be based off of 60 instead of 10 like everything else, or 100 like everything else. And so now we have this terrible system.
I've never looked up why it's 60. It's an interesting question.
There's got to be a reason, I'm sure. But yeah. Yeah. This will be nice to do, formatting time. But one thing that it's going to be kind of annoying is I'm almost wondering if we should just make a draw time function. So formatting time is nice, but there's another problem with doing time in our. No, you know what? This isn't a problem if you use the fancy text extension. So, what I was getting at is, let me switch over to main.ts for a second. And I'm going to do game.onShade. This is a thing that has no block, but basically it runs some code after all the sprites get drawn, but every frame. So you can draw stuff to the screen inside of this. So I use it for doing little things. So I'm going to do screen.print center, and I'm going to pass in the text 1249. And we're going to print it at Y 60, I guess. And we will just pass in the that's in 1. And this actually looks not as bad as I remember it looking.
Yeah, seems pretty decent to me.
Yeah. The problem that I remember encountering in the past is the colon being too far apart from the numbers and it looking weirdly spaced out. And you can kind of see it. Maybe it's just because, like, here, if I make this 1111, I'm sure we'll see it not look good. This is going to look bad, I think. It's not that bad, but it's not great. So you have all of this space here on the left side. This glyph must be kind of centered in the frame of the font, which is why it doesn't look as bad as it could. But yeah, anyway, if you use the fancy text extension, none of this matters because I have variable width stuff, so it'll all get figured out. But that does actually make another problem with the fancy text extension, which is like Soren Lawrence says, kind of like the kerning on the Montana flag. All right, I guess we're doing them. What are we doing here?
Me. Is it the text in the little ribbon at the bottom? Can't see what that says.
Yeah, I mean, the T and A are bothering me, but not that much. Not that bad. Wait, okay. Let me do Montana flag kerning. No, it seems like the issue is this must be this Montana thing, but I honestly don't see the problem.
Break out your ruler, start checking these things.
Yeah, so what is kerning? Kerning is the spacing in between letters. And specifically, fonts do a lot to make it so that certain letters look nicer and more natural. So a kind of classic example is the one that you just saw, which is TA. So T has an overhang and A goes kind of slants down. So a well-kerned font will actually make it so that those two letters are closer together than other letters are, because otherwise they appear farther apart. Even if you were to draw a rectangle around each letter, and they might have the same spacing as all of the other letters. But because the upper part and the lower part are so far apart from each other, you kind of put them closer together so that it looks more natural to the human eye. And so, like actual fonts, they have these tables of letter combinations. And basically, it's like a lookup table where they say, like, oh, if this letter is next to this letter, then they should be spaced this much apart in order to have all of the right natural looking to the eye kind of spacing for words and letters. Our fonts do not do kerning. And we do variable width stuff for the fancy text extension, but I don't do any fancy like per character kerning. You know, it's just each letter has its own width. So you still get some non-optimal stuff sometimes. But with this many pixels, it doesn't super matter. All right. Anyway, let's write this code. Okay. Head on over to custom.ts. We're going to export an enum. And this is going to be time unit, and it's going to take in, it's going to be seconds, milliseconds, and minutes, I guess. I don't really know who would use minutes, but it's easy enough for us to support, so we'll go ahead and do it. So this format, we're going to call this format time. And we also want to pass in how we want this to be formatted. So we're going to do an enum that's going to be called time format. Okay, we'll do hours too. If we do minutes, there's no real reason not to do hours. We're not going to do days, though.
What about years, days, years, centuries?
No, at that point, we're getting silly. Okay. So time format. We want to have different time formats for how this will be like displayed. I'm going to make one that's just called adaptive, like that. And this is going to make it so that it's like the way that I like to have things done are you start out with, when you're inside the minutes, you do, 32 or something, right? And then when you get down to seconds, it switches to 90 point and then the milliseconds left, So that's how I like to do it. Or are those milliseconds or are those like decaseconds? Whatever. Deciseconds.
Yeah, I guess they are.
Yeah. But then we're going to go ahead and do one that is in seconds, and we're going to do one that is in minutes. So the minutes one will be the thing that we just showed, which is going to be the minute : second. And we're going to actually, so when you define an enum, these show up as drop downs on your blocks, but you can control what text shows up by doing this /% block equals, and for this one, I'm just going to do adaptive. But for this seconds one, I'm going to do ss.mm, which is going to be seconds dot milliseconds or whatever. And then this one is going to be, well, I guess m would be minutes. So it's going to do that.
Yeah, 0.
And this one's going to be minutes : seconds.
Like do we want options for padding, or will that be separate?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we do, maybe we don't.
Yeah.
I think when you're displaying time, you always want it to be the same number of digits.
The only scenario where I could see you maybe don't want padding is if you're like operating on a single digit minute scale, and it's always going to be 0, 5, :11. And you don't really need that 0, but
yeah,
it would look kind of weird though. I'm trying to visualize it. Somehow it seems weird if it doesn't have 2 digits for the minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty standard. Like you imagine a microwave clock, right? It always has the 2 things. Same thing with like an alarm clock and stuff. I think it's pretty standard. Even, well, no, like the one place it doesn't do that is like, your phone, because it's smart enough to do 131 as opposed to the other ones. So,
yeah. I mean, we don't have to support it straight away.
Yeah, okay. And we will go ahead and do hours. I really don't know if anyone will ever use this, but might as well put it in, I guess. So this will be hour, minute, like that. Okay, wonderful, beautiful. So we're going to go ahead and pass in a value. We're going to pass in a time unit. So we're going to do unit, time unit. We're going to do format, time format. And the first thing we're going to do is convert this. We're going to take our unit and we're going to convert this into just a standard number that we can use. So I want everything to be in the same thing for when we start like breaking down into what all of the places are. So what's the easiest unit? Should I convert it into milliseconds? It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I think seconds would be the easiest probably in the.
Yeah, you're right. Let's do seconds. So we're going to do case time units dot milliseconds. And then we're going to do value divide equals by 1,000. And that'll convert it into seconds like that. Yeah, if you didn't know, so people have often seen the plus equals and minus equals. You can do that with pretty much any operator. So divide equals, we'll just divide it by that much. Going to do case unit, time unit dot seconds. We're going to do nothing because we want this to be in seconds. Now, if it's in minutes, we want to do value times equals 60. And if it's hours,
you can think for Soren asks what's a switch case. You can think of it as kind of like if, else if, else if, else if kind of structure where you're basically checking the value of unit, the value inside that switch statement, and each case is kind of if unit is equal to milliseconds, do this. If it's equal to seconds, do that. I don't know if there's any functional difference between doing a switch case versus a bunch of if-else statements, or if it's just syntax.
I mean, I think the assembly it produces is different because of the break functionality.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Also, yeah, so the main difference between doing those two things is, so there's this break thing. If I didn't put this break here, it would continue going through to the next one. Switch statements are weird. There's a reason we don't put them in blocks. But it's basically the reason you do it is because it's a nicer syntax when you're typing out than doing a bunch of if else over and over again. But they do have some weird semantics. So if the break is not there, it will continue going to the next case. This is a common source of errors for beginner programmers. They forgot to put in a break, and then they're confused why both cases are running or why the value that's being set is just the last one. Another thing is you can do, there's some scoping stuff. So everything inside of a switch case is in the same scope. So I can declare in an if-else branch, I can declare a variable inside of an if-else branch, and then I can declare the same variable in another branch of that if-else, and they won't collide because they're in different scopes. But I cannot do that in a switch statement. This is sometimes very annoying. You cannot declare the same variable in two different switch statements because they are part of the same scope, technically. And then what else? I guess the only other thing is default. And there's also some like, in some languages, there are some more weird stuff. Like you can have these act as labels, and you can use like a break to jump to a label and stuff like that. I don't think you can do that in JavaScript. If anyone does that, if you can do that in JavaScript and anyone does it, I will talk to them. Just send them my way, and I'll have a stern conversation with them. Yeah. So anyway, switch statements. I could have just as easily done an if else, but I like the syntax a little bit more. Okay. So there you go. Now our value is in seconds, which is nifty. So we want to get all the different places that we have. So we're first going to get the seconds, and by seconds, I mean we want to get the integer value. And I think because for all of these, we are doing these as 2-digit things, we are going to get the integer value and chop off the last 2 digits of the string. So to get these seconds, that one's easy because all we have to do is turn it into an integer. And because I'm fancy, I'll do it the proper way. So we're going to do seconds string equals, and we're going to take our value. And we wanted to turn this into an integer, so we're going to do math.floor. Like that, and we want to convert this into a string. like that. And there we go. We now have our seconds string. Now, this might be longer than 2 digits, and this kind of brings a question of like, what do we want to do in that case? I think we probably just want to convert it into 2 digits. And so to do that, we're going to do dot substring. And oh, this is a good question. Right, yeah. So you can do a -2. Yeah, so the substring method, fun fact, if you pass in negative numbers, it'll start from the end and count backwards. So if you pass in -2, that'll give us the last 2 characters in the string. So, or just what?
Okay.
Also, this could be just 1 character though, because this could be 0 or a single digit. And so we're going to make this a let, and we're going to say if second string dot length is less than 2, second string equals 0 plus second string, like that. All right, what were you going to say, Thomas?
Oh, I was going to say, I don't know if we want to truncate it so that it's only 2 characters. Like if you're in the seconds format.
Yeah, I mean, so I was mainly thinking for, like, we don't want to do it for the seconds format. That's correct.
Yeah, for minutes and hours, you do. You're right. But for minutes and hours, you need,
all right.
We need to do a little more than truncate it anyway, I think.
Yeah, I wanted to avoid this, but it seems like we're not going to be able to. We're just going to have to do all of them separately. And so now I am going to do a if statement for this one. Time format dot. Well, I'll do adaptive last because that one's kind of complicated. Let's do seconds first. Thanks. I'm going to go ahead and copy this up here. And for this, we're going to do const, and we do not care about the, well, no, you know what? We're still going to make it so it's always at least 2 digits. So we're going to get rid of this substring bit. But we are going to make it so it is always at least 2 digits because I think that's standard. You know? So there we go. We now also want to get these are deciseconds, right?
Centiseconds, I think someone mentioned, which I think is probably more correct.
Right, I guess deciseconds would be tens, so they would be centiseconds. All right, well, let's use the proper terminology. And what we're going to do for this is we're going to copy this bit. Come on, over here, right there. But instead of doing the value, we're going to do the value times 100, which will just basically move everything up past the decimal point. And then, we're not, right. Yeah, so it'll move everything up past the decimal point. The decimal point will get chopped off, and then we'll get the last 2 digits. So that'll give us our centiseconds.
Sorry, yeah, that sounds right. I got distracted, but that sounds right.
Yeah, no worries. And we're going to do same thing here. And then we're going to return seconds string plus dot plus centiseconds, like that. All right, cool. That one's done. Format equals time format dot minutes. All right, so let's do the minutes now. So if we're doing minutes, we want to get the second string, and we want to get it just like this. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We want to get this substring just like we did for the centiseconds. Now for minutes, we're going to do what we did for the second string. So let's go ahead and do minute string right here. Oops. Do all this stuff the same, except we're going to take value and we're going to divide it by 60, which will give us our minutes. And now we just return like this. We're going to do a colon instead of a dot. And then put the seconds right there. Beautiful. All right. Next up, we have the hours. And you know what? It's going to look very similar to this one we already have. All right. And so we're going to go ahead and do, so we want to get the minute string just like this, but we also want to get the hour string. So let's go ahead and make this hour string. And it's going to be the same, except we're going to divide it by 3,600. That's right? Yeah. Yes. And we don't want to take the substring on this one. So let's get the actual hours. And then we do hours string plus minutes string. Do we want to do hours, minutes, seconds?
Kind of a big string. I feel like mostly if you're operating on the hours scale, you don't care about the seconds.
Yeah, the only reason I want to do it this way is because once you go from hours to
hours to
minutes, you can't tell the difference.
That's true. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to do all three. So let's get the second string also. Like this, and we're going to do plus colon plus second string. All right, and now finally we're going to go down here, and we need to do the adaptive case. Now, actually, what I'm going to do here is return the empty string, because what we're going to do is say if format equals time formats dot adaptive, then all we want it to do is automatically switch between these three formats. So we're going to say if value is less than 1 minute. So 1 minute is 60, right? We're in seconds. I was overcomplicating this. Then we're going to say format equals time format dot seconds. Else, if value is less than an hour, which is 3,600, then we say format equals time format dot minutes, and then else format equals time format dot hours. All right, and now we put in this return at the end of here to make the compiler happy, but this should never actually happen. And there you go. All right. So there's our format time. Let's go ahead and turn this into a block. We're going to do /% because that's how you do the annotations for our thing. Oh, by the way, I should also put in and I think I just have to write out minutes for this one and hours for this one. I think people will know what S and MS is, but minutes and hours, you just kind of have to write out. I'll just write them all out. All right, there we go. Okay. So to turn this into a block, the first thing we want to do is you want to give all of your blocks a unique block ID. So we're going to do block ID equals, and if you don't do this, it'll work, but you'll run into problems down the line. So just go ahead and, give it a unique block ID. You'll thank yourself for it later. Now we're going to do block equals, and here's where we're going to actually make what our block is going to look like. So we're going to be do format and then value and unit. Notice I'm doing $sign and then the name of the parameter. These have to match. So $sign value is going to make that one value. $sign unit is going to make this one unit. And then we're going to do as format like that. Now, because these are all either numeric types or enums, I don't have to do anything else because MakeCode will automatically turn this one into a number block and these two into drop downs. So nifty like that. If I wanted to, I could give default values, but I don't actually think I need to give default values. For enums, the default value is always the first one in the enum. So milliseconds for time unit, which is what we want, and adaptive for time format, which is also what we want. So that's all fine. All right, cool. There's our format time. All right, so next up, let's do the one that Thomas mentioned, which is we want to pad numbers. So let's kind of expand a little bit on what we want this function to do. So we want to, if you have like a number that is like an integer, you want to be able to add zeros to make it longer, right? What do we want to do? Do we make it a general purpose thing for both that and floating points? Because the other thing that you see that you want a lot of the times is, say I have a floating point number and I want it to display this many digits after the dot, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you could combine those into the same. Well, the trouble is you can't really leave one as unset in that scenario.
Well, you could put zero.
You could put one as, well, zero you might interpret to be like trim off the decimal completely, but
yes, which it should.
Right. But then if I wanted to pad the front side and not trim the decimal for some reason, I mean, I could just put like 10 in and it would probably be fine. So yeah, I think it's fine.
I guess we have to have 3 blocks to handle all the scenarios, don't we?
I mean, you could have one for padding and one for rounding. But
the problem is we can't really round like that because of how floating note points work.
I mean, well, truncating the decimal one way or another. But I think having them in the same box probably fine though. It's hard to think of a realistic scenario where that would cause an issue.
I guess that's true. Okay. Soren Lorenzen gave us a game to play, so we're going to go ahead and check that out. Did you look at it, Thomas?
Is that the one from the one you sent earlier? Let me see. You might just have to mute it because it's got some.
I am going to mute it. Yes.
Yeah. That is copyright music.
Yeah. Sorry, we can't play copyrighted music because the DMCA.
Yeah, it looks familiar. I feel like I've seen this game before. I don't know if you were maybe shared it once before or have been updating it.
Maybe. Can you put it in the chat once you get it?
Oh yeah, sorry.
All right, now I'm not clicking on the link in Teams because it takes 10 minutes to open. We're just going to go straight over. All right, red line, South Hills Village, V2. So is this okay, don't press A until sprite is loaded. Otherwise, you will fail cast on null. Your number one bus was so proud of that you rage quit trying to get to Penn Station to catch a light rail deviation. There is tunnel construction in downtown and a film shoot between Allegheny and Gateway and PRT, Pittsburgh Regional Transit, isn't running bus shuttles. I was wondering what Penn Station it was because there's like 10 Penn stations for some reason. Whoa. You cannot jump.
No double jumping for you, Richard.
Okay. Okay, there are a few things I love. I love the background that just says Pirates for no apparent reason. I'm guessing that's for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
I was guessing that as a sports team, yes.
Yep, one of the few sports teams I know. I love that instead of just not doing a jump, you've made it so that when you press A in the air, it says you cannot jump in a dialogue that pauses the game. That's very good. Oh, yeah, I should have figured that would happen. Okay, we're gonna wait for this to go through again.
I think you can press B to skip it.
Oh, can I? Oh, nifty.
Yeah.
All right, so jump on over. It looks like we can pick those up. Is that a Steelers logo? You're so lucky that I happen to know these sports things, because I got to tell you, I'm not a sports person.
I just like that you're picking up smiley faces. I think that's nice.
That
who
is
needs coins when you can have smiles?
I agree. All right, jump. Okay, go, go, go. All right, that was on me. What is Yinzer? I don't know what that means. Oh, whoops. The smiles are for the smiley cookies at Eaton Park, which I'm guessing is a regional thing that they have. Smiley cookies. It's pretty nice. I like smiley cookies. Kind of like the black and white cookies of New York.
Was that a thing? I've never actually been to New York. Not the city, anyway.
Really? Never?
Nope, never. I live not too far from it when I was.
Okay, I don't know how I failed on this same spot again.
You're getting farther than I got.
All right. Black and white cookies are what they sound like. They are cookies that are divided straight down the middle with black on one half and white on the other half. You can get them other places, but they are mainly associated with here.
People talked about burger cookies as a thing in Baltimore. Like that was kind of Baltimore unique, but I don't know if they actually are. I haven't seen them elsewhere. They're very cakey cookies with thick chocolate frosting on top, and I liked them a lot when I was a kid.
Yeah, Soren Lawrenson says the hitboxes are weird. Yeah, so that's kind of a classic problem in arcade with doing spikes using tiles. I normally do them this way too, but you run into the issue of how they're not pixel perfect overlaps. So it's kind of hard to judge if you're overlapping with it or not, because the game engine is checking if you're overlapping with that square, right? So even if you're over here and not actually hitting the spike, you run into that problem. So a way to fix that is to create a sprite and place it on top of the tile. So the tile util extension actually has a way of creating sprites, one on each tile. And so you can do it that way, give them a kind, do an overlap event that causes you to lose the game, and you'll have pixel perfect overlaps. All right, here we go. All right. Oh, it's the Duquesne incline. Man, I know way more about Pittsburgh than I thought I did. The Duquesne incline, of course, is a funicular in Pittsburgh that goes up and down slopes, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm learning so much.
All right, Station, Pennsylvania. The Monongahela incline, is closed for renovations, is expected to reopen at the end of the month. Oh, so this is a different incline. This is not the Duquesne incline. A test service, Wood Street.
Oh, are we top down? Oh no, you're still.
Yeah. Oh, I just realized I can use the up and down on this one, but it seems like I still have gravity of some kind. All right, are we at the end of this game, Soren Lawrenson? You have to tell me. Red line, South Hills Village.
I think we're just playing the waiting for your train simulator now.
There you go. You win. Score 28. Very cool. All right, so let's talk briefly on how to fix this error that you have, which is pressing A causes this exception, right? You get this null cast error. So we're going to go into your code and we're going to fix that real quick. It's easy to fix. So the reason this is happening is because inside of your on A button pressed, there you go, right here, you're doing is my sprite hitting wall bottom, right? And this is going to cause an issue because of, let's see, there's 2 reasons this could cause an issue. But I'm guessing that my sprite just isn't defined yet. Where is the, yeah, so here's your print character text, and my sprite isn't defined yet. So to fix that, you can go ahead and do an if like this, and just grab your my sprite. Oh, whoops. Just duplicate that, put that right there inside the if statement. And this will evaluate as false until my sprite is actually assigned. So now I can press A all I want. Nothing bad happens. So there you go. Here's a little trick for you. All right. Nice. And that's going to be it for us today. Remember, tune in on Friday. We are going to be playing all of the mini game jam games and also playing the superhero jam games. By the way, I am starting planning for the next game jam. My plan is for it to be in February. This is going to be the next capital G, capital J game jam. So look forward to that. We're still trying to figure out what the theme is, and then there's a lot of work I have to do before we can actually do it. But it's that. Hi, Hassan. Give yourself a quarter. Except Joey's bot is not on today.
We'll just have to remember that I owe the quarter.
Yeah. All right. And I hope everybody had a happy holidays and has a happy new year. I am Richard, average for the MakeCode Forum.
I am Hassan. I Hassan on the MakeCode Forum. Sneaking in at the end.
I'm Thomas. That's Sparks on the MakeCode Forum.
And we will see you on Friday. Bye.
Bye.